Bill 17. The Honourable Member for Barhead, Warrenville, Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it's a pleasure to rise this evening in the early hour of the morning, maybe, to speak to third reading on Bill 17, so-called Fair and Family-Friendly Workplace Amendment Act.
Really?
At a time when our province is experiencing significant uncertainty and many Albertans find themselves without a job, this government has decided to add even another level of uncertainty. By adding significant changes to the Labour Relations Code, we have opened up possibly another signal to send to the marketplace that Alberta is moving down a road of uncertainty. Alberta has suffered a severe recession. Tens of thousands of Albertans have lost their job. These people need a government to do no more harm. Yet at a time when Albertans need their government to focus on creating an environment conducive for investment and job creation, this government's priority is to pander to their union friends. This is quite concerning, Mr. Speaker. This government is sending signals to the marketplace that is not helping. Bill 17 is not helping to encourage investment needed to bring back well-paying jobs. This government should be ashamed of itself for ramming through an omnibus bill at the very end of session. Look how late we are in the day. We are discussing this bill because this government was scrambling. This government was scrambling to put together a huge bill after so little consultation. Even at the end of our working committee of the whole, this government has to bring forward last-minute amendments to change a bill because they recognize that, well, they hadn't got it right. And yet we could have taken the time, we had moved many amendments to take the time to do it right. This government knows that many elements of this bill are specifically designed to serve its union bosses and were not in the best interests of everyday Albertans. The government's strategy was to take away public attention from the changes to the Labour Relations Code. Continually, the minister would highlight and focus on employment standards parts of the legislation, but never highlight what was being done in our Labour Relations Code, hoping that Albertans would not notice. But, Mr. Speaker, Albertans have noticed, and I do believe that, Mr. Speaker, they will recognize that this government has been working more for their union friends than for the everyday Albertans that are just, all they want is an environment where they can go and find a job.
Agreed.
This government's main priority appeared to be not to look after the vulnerable workers at all. It is to enable their union bosses to expand their reach and increase the market share of the province that is unionized. One way to do this is to get rid of the secret ballot. To get rid of the secret ballot vote to certify a union, a democratic right, a pillar of a democratic society to protect the rights of all individuals to a secret ballot, to be able to not be put into a situation of coercion. And union activists will now be able to coerce 65% of a workplace's employees into signing union cards. And then their job is done. It doesn't matter how many employees are in that business even. Opposition members brought forward some 30 amendments. And as I said previously, even the government had to bring forward amendments to try and improve this bill. We put forth an amendment so the government can rethink its removal of the secret ballot. The government had an opportunity to acknowledge that secret ballots are a fundamental aspect of democracy that serve an important purpose. But this government voted down our amendment.
Shame.
This is not compassionate and is inconsiderate to the vulnerable workers who would sign cards knowing that they could say in a secret ballot how they really feel when they cast their secret ballot in a subsequent vote. Mr. Speaker, it is disgraceful that the NDP even defeated our amendment to prevent unsolicited visits to employees' private residence. The NDP recently banned door-to-door sales for other sectors because they say that some residents are very vulnerable to some of the tactics used. Now they're endorsing it if it could mean more unionization. This government's main priority was not to protect Albertans, to protect employees from coercion, intimidation, threats, promises, undue influence, and the like. This government's main priority was to simplify union certification. And in addition, this government would not reverse its unjustifiable decision to double the amount of time that union organizers have to get people to sign these cards. It used to be that workers had to sign the union cards within 90 days of the application for union certification. Now the cards are valid for up to 180 days. Even more pressure on employees in the workforce and even more time to be intimidated. In fact, this government voted down many reasonable amendments proposed in this House. Great. One that immediately comes to mind is when it comes to banking overtime. That was a good one. With this bill, employers must give workers 1.5 hours off for every 1 hour of banked overtime. One of our concerns with this is that overtime is often banked at the initiative of the employee. For example, an employee might come in an hour early and leave an hour late from Monday to Thursday so that they can take an extended weekend with their families. Maybe go camping at the lake or spending other time with their family. An employer now under Bill 17 is less likely to allow their workers to do that if it costs the employer time and a half. We tried to pass an amendment not returning the ratio to 1 hour for 1 hour generally, but only if banked overtime was at the initiative of the employee. It's a very common sense amendment. Agreed. But this NDP government voted down that motion. So when this affects Alberta families who now have much less flexibility in the workplace, we will make it clear and remind them that this is because of the NDP. The NDP's worldview is one that the government should tell people how to live and that the government knows what's best for the people. The NDP's worldview is one that business owners, whether large or small businesses, are on a mission to extract as much as possible out of their employees and exploit them at every opportunity. But, Mr. Speaker, there are many, many hard-working Albertans that are good people who create jobs and bring value to society through their businesses. With this bill especially, the NDP shows serious disregard for the plight of business owners and job creators at this time. This NDP government keeps piling on and on, making it difficult for businesses to adjust. Businesses can adjust, but they need time to adjust. It becomes very difficult in a troubled time to adjust your business to be able to survive and produce the jobs that Albertans are looking for. Businesses are already having to deal with the highest minimum wage of all provinces. Now, while our economy is slumping, they will have to pay more for overtime, be unable to have compressed work weeks, grant indefinite secure leaves, provide more notice for group terminations, and the list goes on. This government should be focused on getting Albertans back to work. It should be focused on making sure we have a stable economy that is attracting investment. And as we attract investment, we create the jobs that Albertans so badly need. But no, instead this government is focused and appears their priority is on helping its union friends and its union bosses with their interests. This government voted down reasonable amendments that are fair to union members. For example, a requirement for unions to disclose its financials. We also moved an amendment that would prevent mandatory union dues from being used for political advertising. This would have helped the NDP meet its own touted objective of getting big money out of politics. Mr. Speaker, we even put forward an amendment that would not change the bill at all, but that would allow subsequent governments and encourage and make subsequent governments review this act in 5 years. so that we would not be stuck in a position where governments down the road would take their time and where this minister was concerned that it was over 30, or it was just about 30 years since it was last updated. And yet this government voted that amendment down also. So, Madam Chair, or Madam Speaker, I will not be voting in favour of Bill 17 at this time, and I would ask this government to do better, to look out for Alberta families, to look out for Alberta employees, and be sure that they're sending the right signals to the investment market to help to bring the jobs back to Alberta that our families so desperately need. Agreed. Thank you.